Hi, this is Gail, and I am the Fiction Bookworm. I'm coming to you today with my October wrap-up, talking about the books that I read in October. And it never fails that as soon as I start filming, my dog has to be right here by my side. Want to say hi to everybody, Nikki? Want to come up and say hi? No? Okay. So, I started a new thing in October, and that is I am reviving my NetGalley account and really working hard on reading books ahead of time so that I can have a weekly or a monthly, I should say, segment of this booktube on books that are coming out in the coming month. So because I have to read ahead on that, I can't talk about all of the books that I read this month because some of them will be for my probably short November review of books that are coming out this month. And then I think December will also probably be fairly short, mostly because I didn't find a lot of good books that were coming out in December. There are a lot of books coming out in January, so that one will be very long, and I'm currently reading January books. I think I have at least 3 or 4 of them that I will be reading that I've either already read or will be reading in the coming month. And so I will talk about some of the books that I've read in my wrap-up, but not all of them. Some of them will be covered in the segment that I'll do on books that are coming out soon. Come here, Nikki. Want to come up? Come sit in my lap. Okay. Oof. Oh. Here he is. Okay, so I read 7 books in October, which I'm really happy about. That's going to help me catch up a little bit on my Goodreads goals. I think I was about 6 books behind at the beginning of October. Now I'm currently showing that I'm 3 books behind. So that's much better. I'm excited about that. So the books that I read. Okay, so let me talk now about the books that I finished in October. The book that I read for my book club this month was a really excellent book. I'm kind of at a loss as to why I hadn't read it before, and I highly encourage you to read it. It's called The Wedding by Dorothea West. When I first read it, I was actually a little bit upset because I knew that it was published in the 90s, and I was in college in the 90s, and I remember for one of my lit classes we read a book that my professor felt like was going to be sort of a modern day classic. I didn't really care for it. I didn't really think it was even going to be a classic, but this book, The Wedding by Dorothea West, was published in 1995, and it really is a sort of modern day classic. Okay, so The Wedding is the story of an African-American family, and it's set in Martha's Vineyard at their summer vacation home. And it's in a part of Martha's Vineyard called The Circle. And all of the people who live in The Circle are also African-American families. And they are a fairly well-off family that they can afford this vacation home and afford to, spend part, if not most of their summer in Martha's Vineyard. And it's a close-knit community. Everybody knows everyone. And the wedding that the title speaks of is the wedding of the family's younger daughter, and she's getting ready to marry a young white man. And the story involves a lot of flashbacks of the family. We learn a lot about the family origins. The grandmother of the family, who calls herself the family matriarch, is a white woman, and she's a bit of a complex character because she actually, the book is set, I think, in the 1950s maybe, And so this grandmother actually was alive. She was a young girl during the Civil War. Um, and they come from the South, and she actually grew up on a plantation. And she has a lot of very racist ideas, and yet she's the matriarch of this African American family. We learn in the course of the story that her daughter ran off with a man who was the son of a woman that was, I think, also was a young girl on the plantation when the grandmother grew up, and he fell in love with this young white woman and asked her to marry him, and she felt like she had no other better prospects for marriage, so she agreed to go. But then when she had their first baby, she, I think, is kind of regrets her decision and sort of becomes an invalid. But then the family continues on, and we learn more about the rest of the family, and so it's just really interesting. I really loved all the flashbacks into the family's history, and just some of the complexities that are there as well. And Dorothea West is an amazing writer. She's actually known more for her short stories. And as you're reading the book, you can kind of see it's sort of a string of short stories that have been pieced together. So it's a novel, but at the same time, there's a lot of smaller stories within the novel. So it's really interesting and just brilliant. It's just really brilliant. So I highly recommend The Wedding by Dorothea West. I think that was the first book that I finished this month. Another book that I finished this month that I talked a little bit about, I think, in my spooky video is The House of Brides by Jane Cockrum. And that was a really fun book. It actually also came out, I think, in October. And it is the story of a young woman. It's really a gothic tale, the story of a young woman who doesn't really know much about her mother's family. They've been estranged from them forever, and she gets a letter and decides to go and try and meet them, and then she's mistaken for a nanny applicant, and so she decides to just let that misunderstanding stand, and she becomes a nanny to this family. The children are her cousins, and the wife and mother disappears, and so she's trying to solve this mystery. So I really liked it. It's a fun story set in this kind of old house, mansion, family estate kind of place. And it was a great version of a modern Gothic story, which I love Gothic. So it reminded very much of the Victoria Holt books that I used to read when I was a kid. So I really liked The House of Brides. So the next book that I finished was called The Woman in the Lake. And I think it was one that I said that I was going to read in October because of a possible kind of spooky, maybe Gothic tones of it. I don't remember if I said I was going to read it or not. But anyway, I did. It was actually a really good kind of spooky book to read in October because there is sort of a haunting kind of theme in it. It's not actually a haunted house. In this case, it's a haunted dress. So like this dress has kind of been cursed. So the story about the dress is it's this beautiful golden dress, and it was given by this Lord Gerard, to his wife, Lady Isabella, and not as a really kind gift because Isabella and Gerard aren't really getting along very well, and so Lord Gerard has actually poisoned the dress. And Lady Isabella's maid is her name is Cornelia, I think, and she is another POV character. There's actually 4 POV characters in the book. And in the audio version, which I listened to, each one has a different narrator, which is really cool. So we have Lord Gerard, who's just a very small narration part. Lady Isabella, the maid Cornelia, I think her name is, and then a modern day woman, which is why it's a dual timeline story. And Nicola Cornick likes to write these dual timeline stories. So the maid Cornelia is kind of a spy. She's paid to be a spy on Lady Isabella for Lord Gerard. They have this disagreeable kind of marriage where he has never stopped, sleeping with whoever he wants. And she, kind of in revenge, also sleeps with whoever she wants. And I think Lord Gerard has had enough, so he poisons this dress and gives her this beautiful dress to wear. But she is so angry with him, she doesn't care about his gift, she doesn't want to wear it. So she never wears a dress, she goes away to the country. She summons this doctor to come and care for her, and then later ends up having an affair with this doctor, not knowing that her maid has also had an affair with him and has a huge crush on him as well. So there's a lot of tension there. Fenn encounters a dress where it is on display 200 years later, or not quite 200 maybe, but close to 200 years later, at this historic home where she goes as a child on a field trip. And for some reason the dress calls out to her and she steals it. So this dress has not only been poisoned, it has some kind of magical powers where it makes people do things. It sort of enhances whatever natural inclinations they already have. And so Fenn has had a little bit of trouble with kleptomania, basically. She's always stolen little things. Not for the purpose of having them, just because she has this urge to steal things. So she steals the dress. And so kind of then we flash forward to when she's an adult and she's kind of forgotten about the dress and it's been packed away and hidden. Well, then the dress resurfaces again and she starts stealing things again. And so she's trying to figure out what's going on and she's trying to find out more information about the dress. She meets a man who is a art expert, and he's doing some investigating about the house and also some of the artifacts from the house. And so they are trying to do some research about this dress and the house and Lady Isabella and Lord Gerard. As we're reading and listening to this book, we learn more about them and what's going on. Anyway, so that's what the book is about. And it is, it was good. I really enjoyed it. I love the fact that there were 4 narrators. I don't want to say anything more and kind of spoil the story, but I do recommend it. So this was my second book by Nicola Cornick. I talked about her in my dual timeline video, and I loved the first book that I read by her, and this was also good. Not as good as the first one, but still very good. So I'm looking forward to reading more books by her in the future. The next book I read in October, it was one that also came out in October, and it's called Twice on a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren, and this is a contemporary romance, and it was just a very fun book. I fell in love with the book in the first chapter when I realized that the first chapter was an homage to the book A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, which is a book that I love. And so that was really fun, and they're in London, and not Italy, but London, and it's about these 2 young people who are on vacation with their grandparents, and Tate is 17 and or 18, she's just graduated from high school, and Sam is in college, so he's maybe 20 or 21, and so they're both on vacation with their grandparents, staying at the same hotel. So they see each other quite a bit and they fall in love. And Tate tells him a lot of secrets, and she's actually a young woman with a lot of secrets because she is the daughter of a very famous Hollywood actor, kind of, think like Brad Pitt fame kind of actor, except her parents have been separated since she was, I think, about 8, and she hasn't actually really seen her dad since then. So it's probably been 10 years since she's seen her dad. And her mom live very sort of reclusively in this small town with her grandmother. And And so Tate's vacation in London ends abruptly when suddenly both Sam and his grandfather have disappeared, and the press has gotten wind of exactly who she is, and suddenly after 10 years of of sort of the media not knowing where this famous actor's daughter has gone, she reappears. And so Tate ends up using that to kind of launch herself into a career as an actress, which is kind of a dream of hers, but one she was sort of afraid to tell her mom and her grandma, because they've worked so hard for the past 10 years to kind of keep her secluded and out of the media. And so she does go on to a career as an actress, and we sort of fast forward, I think at least another 15 years or so, and Tate has been on some TV shows, and she's getting ready to do her first really big movie, and it's also a movie starring her dad. And so it's this kind of big media event because it's the first movie that father and daughter are starring in together, and the press is very interested to know what happens. And when she arrives on the set, which is going to be filmed at this small, I forget if it was a ranch or maybe even a resort up in Northern California, she arrives on location, and it's meant to be kind of a secluded place. And the big press deal is going to be her reunion with her father. But when she gets there, she discovers that the writer of the screenplay is none other than Sam, this boy who disappeared and broke her heart, and who she thinks sold her out to the press all of these years ago. And so she is shocked when they first meet, and she and Sam have a lot to work through. And it was just a really beautiful story. I really enjoyed reading about Sam and Tate. The setting of the story was really cool because they're kind of, in this little kind of like a vacation sort of story where they're in a secluded location, and they have to try and work things out. I love second chances, which is definitely a part of this story. Because here's this couple that was in love before, now they are together again, and so you're kind of waiting to find out what's going to happen. So I really liked it. I really liked it. So for those of you who are concerned about romances with the bedroom door open, this one does have it open, but it's not incredibly graphic. I didn't feel like. So it's a fun story, really emotional, but also and just enjoyable to read. So last on my list of books that I read in October that I can share with you is another contemporary romance. This one is actually by a Christian author, so it does contain Christian themes in it. And this is by one of my favorite Christian authors called Susan May Warren. And she has written a lot of series. She's a very prolific writer. And this one is set in Montana, and it is about a new family. So she's got a whole new series about this family called the Marshall family. And there's one character that I think we had met before in a previous series that she wrote. And then this is kind of about the rest of the siblings. And so the very first book is called Knox. And this is about the second brother. The oldest brother, his name is Reuben, and he had a story in a previous series about firefighters. And Knox is the second oldest son, and he's the one who stayed on the ranch to take care of his dad's ranch where they grew up. And he had a short career as a bull rider in the rodeo, but now he has met a country star and has kind of fallen in love with her at first sight, but she is being pursued by a killer. So it's definitely a romantic suspense, because we've got the suspense of who's trying to kill this country music group. They call it's two young women make up this band called the Yankee Bells, and they face several like bombings and assassination attempts and accidents and things like that. And so it's a pretty simple story. Yeah, just kind of read it for fun. Nothing really too deep, but it was okay. It wasn't my favorite book that I've read by this author. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series because, like me, this author spent some time living in Russia, which is how I found out about her. She wrote a series of 4 books set in Russia, actually a couple of series of books set in Russia. And so that's how I found out about her, and I really enjoyed those books. And this series is going to have another Russian tie. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the books of the series. And that, I think, sums up my reading for October, at least what I can talk about now. I think my next video will be pretty short, and we'll talk about some books that I have read that are coming out in November. So I hope that you will look forward to that. I will be traveling next week, so I may record from my hotel room. We'll see. Either that or I don't know when. Life is busy right now. So I hope that you enjoyed learning about these books and that you will find something that you like to read too. And please tell me, I'd love to hear about what you read in October. I'm always looking for suggestions of new books, as well as sharing my suggestions. So have a good day and enjoy reading. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and be sure to subscribe to my channel. See you next time.